Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. We're going to give it a couple more minutes and we've still got a few more people joining in, so we'll give it a little more time and let as many people join in as possible before we make a start. Hi, for those of you just joining, thanks so much for joining us this evening. Just giving it a couple more moments, we'll let as many people join as possible before we get started. Okay, just give it a few more seconds, still got a few people joining in. Okay, I'm sure we've still got a few more joining in, but we've got a lot to get through today. So let's make a start. Thank you all so much, firstly, for giving up your evenings to come and listen and share your comments and your views tonight. Before we get started, I'll do a quick introduction of the panel. Firstly, I'm Lisa Flounders, so I work for Property House Marketing. We're a Guildford-based communications agency and we're working with the team on the North Street Regeneration. I'm joined by the team from St Edward, so Rob Packham, Tom Pocock, Jack Nicholson and Lewis Simons. I'm also joined by John Rigg, Guildford Borough Council, and by the architect team from JTP as well, which is Ian Fenn and Rebecca Taylor. So there's lots of you on the call today, which is great to see. If you have any questions after the presentation, please make use of the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you want to pop your questions in there, once the presentation has taken place, I'll be working my way through as many of those as possible during the session. Any questions we don't get through today, please rest assured they will get answered. We'll pick them up and there will be follow-up after the session. So before I hand over to the team then, John, I understand you'd like to say a few words before we get started.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. And good evening and welcome to this presentation on the North Street scheme. We have a good turnout for this meeting, which is being recorded, so others not attending tonight can watch it and not feel left out in any way. The proposals you will hear about are still in outline. This is the first of 3 consultations which the council wanted to arrange. As the scheme develops, there will be a second consultation and then a third consultation with the actual scheme selected by the developers to when they apply for planning consent. The intention and the council's serious ambition is that the consultation will be a real one. That is an early stage one where the project is in outline, inviting your and the community's views. And the second one as the ideas become clean, and a final one with the developer's selected project, as I said. Whilst the public consultation is underway, the developer will have separate meetings with the council planning department who will undertake their own process. We will have a presentation tonight from Berkeley Homes and their joint venture subsidiary, St Edward's, and the architects acting for the developer. For a lot of you who know Guildford well, you will realise this is probably the 6th or 7th attempt to secure a development of North Street, going back over 2 decades. In fact, we're probably blessed in many respects in that those developments were mostly retail, which today would have been very much surplus to requirements. But why in such a great town has there been an issue over a period of time when in property investment in town centre schemes has been very, very popular and very available? Well, it's a multitude of reasons have been suggested: excessive expectations by the council or others, negotiations that took too long and were too expensive or complicated because it involved relocating a bus station and creating a new one, and then complexity of the site and the development constraints. So we've got actually at the moment now a new scheme which is fundamentally residential with public realm at ground floor level. And we're very hopeful that Berkeley Homes and St Edwards, who are recognised as amongst the best developers in the United Kingdom, that they will deliver for us the type of scheme that we all hope for. Obviously, it won't please all the people all the time, but we will try, and the council will try, to reach a consensus on what is the right way forward. But I think the main achievements, the main objectives that we have here, having secured a first-class developer and secured agreement that they will provide a new bus interchange on the site at no cost to this council, it's to use our position to get exactly the type of scheme we want. And we want homes. I mean, homes are going to be really important to revive the centre of Guildford. And all of you will be aware of the current state of the high street. And really, we've got to bring daytime and nighttime activities and a new neighbourhood into the town centre. So that's enough from me anyway. I'll hand you over to Tom Pocock on behalf of the developers, and hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much to Lisa and John for the introduction. My name's Tom Pocock. I'm Managing Director responsible for land and planning for Berkeley St Edward. Firstly, I'd like to say what a pleasure it is to be here this evening to talk to you about this fantastic opportunity at North Street. The start of this consultation marks a really exciting chapter for both Guildford and St Edward, and hopefully finally unlocking this key regeneration opportunity. We very much look forward to getting to know more of you and the wider community over the coming years as this development comes to fruition. There is a real desire and an intention to involve the community in the evolution of the design of this site, and we would encourage you, your neighbours, family and friends to get involved as much as they can. As we will explain this evening in more detail, this event marks the start of what we hope will be an engaging and iterative process with the community of Guildford. And we want to reassure you that we're here to genuinely engage and debate the site. We can't promise, as John says, that we'll be able to meet all of your aspirations, the likes and dislikes of everyone on the call today, but we certainly will answer the questions we can. And if there are any questions that we can't answer this evening, as Lisa said, we will follow those up after the presentation. Rob, could you move on to the next slide for me, please? So just to introduce you to the team quickly. As we said, we'll talk about who St Edward are and how they form part of the Berkeley Group in a bit. We've also got John Thompson and Partners, our architects, on the call tonight. So myself, Jack Nicholson, Rob and Lewis is also with us this evening, who are the team from St Edward. You'll be seeing a lot of us face to face and over obviously Zoom calls probably as the months go on. And then we've got Ian and Rebecca from JTP, who are both leading the project from the architects. So I'm going to pass over to Jack Nicholson, who's our Land and Planning Director for St Edward, to take this slide forward.
Thanks, Tom, and good evening, everyone. Over the next few slides, I just wanted to take you through an introduction as to who the Berkeley Group are and who the subsidiary delivering North Street are, which is St Edward, and just talk to you a little bit about some of the facts about us and take you through some case studies, just so that you can see the sort of developer that we are and the sort of work that we've done previously. As John touched on, we are very well renowned as a high quality developer with a reputation for delivering, which is really what North Street needs. So in terms of facts about the group, we built more than 19,600 homes in the last 5 years and made a contribution of 13.5 billion to the UK economy. We have the highest customer satisfaction score in our sector and support around 500 apprentices per year. And we became the UK's first carbon positive home builder in 2018. So St Edward are the developer. They are a subsidiary of the Berkeley Group. Other subsidiary companies include Berkeley Homes themselves and St James, St George and St Joseph. And the reason St Edward are involved at North Street is we have a joint venture with M&G, who are one of the majority landowners at North Street. And just below some images of some of the sort of projects that St Edward themselves have delivered or are delivering at the moment. So from left to right, the very high profile 9 Millbank development, which is a grade 2 listed building, a high-end sort of apartment conversion on the River Thames, just next to the Houses of Parliament, to Stanmore Place, which is a sort of environmentally friendly led development in North London, centred around a lake and high quality landscaping. And then 375 Kensington High Street, another residential led scheme with commercial in the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. So the principles to which St Edward operates, we are experts in placemaking, and our developments are very much approached with a placemaking mindset. And there are 4 key principles to this. The first is that it starts with the people. It's about creating a place for everyone. Second is the place, delivering a place that brings community and nature together. Third is the community and encouraging community spirit. And fourth are then the buildings themselves, the architecture and the high quality buildings, the attention to detail that surround those spaces. And here are a few images of some of the schemes that we've delivered. We are a residential led developer, but we're very much experts in mixed use. So some of these images include the Woolwich Art Fair. We've got some jazz festivals that we put on within our developments. We've got some more traditional retail coffee shop type of things that we've delivered. The bottom right is the Bridge Theatre that we've just opened at our One Tower Bridge development. So we're very much more than just building homes. It's very much about creating destinations that people want to come and visit and work and spend time and meet friends. So it's very much mixed use communities is what we deliver. We are committed to sustainability, exploring sustainable energy strategies, addressing climate change, delivering a net gain on biodiversity on each and every site that we develop on, and to be zero net carbon by 2030. And on the screen there are just some of the awards that we've won more recently, including Sustainable House Builder of the Year 2019. And I'm just going to show some images of a selection of some of the schemes that we've delivered recently. The one on the screen now is Fulham Reach in West London, just sat on the banks of the River Thames. And just picking out some of the sort of key USPs on this site. The high quality architecture, blending from the sort of warehouse style you see there on the river itself, moving to some more contemporary glazed elements elsewhere in the scheme. The really high quality landscaping, and the balance of having a space where the residents can enjoy, but much more also about the spaces that people can, from outside of the development, can come and visit. So we opened up the River Walk, people running and coming to visit the commercial spaces and things. The public art there on the bottom right is something that we often incorporate into our schemes. And then a really successful balance of commercial uses. So residential at the upper floors, but the ground floors are very much animated by the Riverside Restaurant Pub, the yoga studios, the convenience store, the estate agents' offices, and many more different uses at the scheme. Another scheme that we've just recently delivered, 10 years in the making, and one of the first projects I worked on when I joined 9 years ago, is Wimbledon Hill Park down in Merton. Very different scheme. It's sat in a very sensitive metropolitan open land area. And this involved Berkeley taking on the dilapidated grade 2 listed Atkinson Morley Hospital. You can see in the top right and the bottom right hand side, we undertook a painstaking conversion of the old building, and then also restored 19 acres of public parkland around the development and opened it up for all to enjoy. So now you've got people walking their dogs through there and really enjoying the space. We delivered a new sports pavilion and playing fields for the local school. We funded the extension of a scouts hut down there. And the image on the left there you can see is one of the new buildings, but very much with a sympathetic architecture, with the brick-led scheme, with the high quality details set around a new formal landscape square, which is now opened up for everyone to enjoy, whether they be residents or visitors to the local area. Heartland Village is another one of our projects. This is a St Edward project. This is down in Farnborough, different altogether, 1,500 homes, so much larger in scale, set again in a sensitive but very complicated and contaminated site, which required heavy investment by St Edward to remediate the site. And it's very much focused around a sort of woodland rural living, really high quality. We've got a more traditional rural style of architecture to fit in with the local surroundings, and really encouraging a healthy outdoors lifestyle. So lots of cycle routes. We deliver the new lake there that you can see in the top right. And then on the bottom right hand image, you can see the grand Heartland Manor, a new building that we've built, but really creates that wow factor as you enter the development. Nice high quality architecture. One Tower Bridge is another development that many of you may have visited recently. You can see some of London's key landmarks surrounding it. Very, very sensitive site. The image of the top right there, you can see Tower Bridge. And then the top left there, the GLA, the Mayor's office and the Shard there. So again, it's on the banks of the River Thames, but a very sensitive and busy part of London. And we've delivered a sort of very high quality architecture. And again, large public spaces where people can gather and meet, and some really successful commercial spaces at the ground floor. We've got the large Bridge Theatre, the Ivy restaurant, and many other new restaurants and shops opening up there. So another example of what we've delivered. Now I'll hand over to Ian and Rebecca to go through JTP, our architects' schemes.
Thanks, Jack. Good evening, everyone. We work right across the UK in many different places, and each place that we do work, we really try and focus and understand the context in which the scheme on the site sits to really create a compelling vision and a new place that responds well to the context, whether that be through architecture, form, and various other different relationships, creating spaces and creating new places and communities for people to live in. And we like to do this through a process of understanding, engaging in creating. So it's understanding the place first, engaging with local people to help create a shared vision, and then go about creating a shared vision and engendering local buy-in in that process, so we can take that forward. So you can see here four schemes that we've worked on in recent years, all very different, all responding to their setting in different ways. Old Isleworth there, you can see on the left-hand side, very much a warehouse setting on the banks of the River Thames in southwest London. Dickens Yard in Ealing, a high-density town centre extension, responding to some very sensitive heritage assets, including Grade 2 listed church. St Clement's, working with Grade 2 listed buildings, refurbishing them and adding new high-density buildings in close proximity to them in East London. And Highgate Police Station, working in a conservation area in North London, working very closely with local people to create a sensitive yet high-density new addition to their neighbourhood. So we're very much looking forward to working with you on these proposals. I'm very fortunate to be working in Guildford, such a fantastic place.
Well, thanks very much to Jack and Ian for talking through some of our track record, both as Berkeley Group and as JTP. What we wanted to portray to you all this evening is that collectively as a team, we have a vast array of projects of a varying nature of complexity, both in terms of low density and more town centre appropriate style developments. As Tom, Jack and Ian and the team have all said, we are very, very aware of the location of this development proposal. It's right in the middle of your town centre. It's just over 4.5 acres. And we feel that the prominence and the importance of the development proposal is certainly not lost on us. And we feel very proud to be bringing forward this development opportunity in the middle of the town. Next slide, please. So this slide here represents the various different land ownerships within the Red Line. Ian and Rebecca will talk through some of the more physical constraints that we've had to consider through our design proposals as we go through the planning process. But what we wanted to show through this slide is through a lot of hard work between Guildford Borough Council, St Edward and M&G, we've spent a long time unlocking the site and are very proud to say we've agreed a way forward and are very confident in the next steps but wanted to pass on my own personal thanks to the Guildford Borough Council team in working very, very hard in making this vision become a reality. So ultimately, what we all wanted to portray from this slide is just how passionate we are about bringing forward something exciting here. Ultimately, the buildings that we eventually build will last generations, and we want to build something which you as the community will be proud of. Although what we're proposing is a residential-led scheme, there is an opportunity for a vast array of different uses on the ground floor for people to enjoy. And as John said in his starting statement, we want people to come to this scheme at different times of the day and enjoy it in a variety of different ways. And we very much welcome your opinion on what you would like to see on the development. But our vision for this site is not only to support the local economy through significant investment and the creation of jobs throughout the life cycle of its construction and into the future, but we want to provide a range of high quality new homes, both market and affordable, which utilises a derelict brownfield site without the reliance of green belt, greenfield countryside. We feel there's an opportunity for a new civic space in the centre of Guildford, something which perhaps the town might be lacking, a place where people can come, meet their friends and family, sit down, enjoy a meal and enjoy a drink in the variety of different uses that I just described. One of the biggest considerations for us is the new bus station, moving it and relocating it from its current position and redesigning it in a new and modern way. And again, we welcome your thoughts on this. Berkeley Group are renowned for a high quality product, and that's something we very much want to replicate to both enhance and complement what's there in Guildford already, and in a manner which is sustainable and addresses the climate change emergency, which is so important worldwide. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, because of everything that's gone on this year, we aren't able to actually present and meet you in person. That creates its own challenges, and it is a shame, but it also creates some opportunities as well. We, as John said, will be hosting a series of webinars throughout this process, and we are very much at the start. This is one of the first webinars of a few to take us up to a planning submission, hopefully in the middle of next year, where we hope to answer as many questions as you might have, both at the end of each session, and following that, we will answer whatever questions we can and post it on a dedicated website. Hopefully you've all seen our northstreet.co.uk, which you would have registered to join this seminar today. But as we go through this process, we will update the information that we present to you and provide an ability for you all to comment, rank, and vote on our proposals where appropriate. So this is stage one, and this is very much the early principles of design, where we want to utilize the digital platforms that we have available to us and create content which is flexible and easy for you as the viewer to see and to comment as we go forward. We appreciate that not everyone in the community will have access to the internet and won't necessarily have access to these online webinars, so we're making sure to safeguard the traditional methods of passing information over as well through leaflet dropping and providing information in that manner. We want to communicate to you all that we welcome your feedback, and we really do want to take it into consideration to feed into these designs as they progress. But given the early stage we are in the planning process, this is a welcome opportunity for you all to comment and feed into these designs as we go through. So throughout this presentation, we've highlighted in a bright blue bubble where we really welcome your comments in particular. And I will pass over to our architects, JTP, to take you through some of the very early analysis and design proposals for this exciting opportunity.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, everyone. So Ian and I will take you through our first thoughts really on the emerging master plan for North Street, and also some of the contextual analysis and understanding that we've undertaken over recent months to start to inform those proposals. So first of all, what makes Guildford unique? These are the little prompts that Rob referred to, things that you might like to add to the feedback forms and chat and so on, so that we can capture. And of course, all other thoughts welcome as well. So we spent quite a bit of time, getting to understand your town, and I think there's a number of things we've identified as being particularly special and unique. Ian touched on understanding the DNA of a place. I think it's fair to say Guildford has a particularly distinct DNA, and one that we're really keen to not only work with, but embed within and enhance and continue to grow. Some of these features are written here on the left. So one relates to the element of discovery and the sort of curiosity as you move through the town, from narrow alleyways through to open spaces, and that sort of experience as you progress through the town is quite special. Also in relation to there's sort of key east-west routes, such as the High Street and North Street, these primary routes that run east-west and have the views at either end, and then contrasting with the much narrower, what we might call finer grain routes and alleyways and ginnels that run in a north-south direction, which gives these very particular kind of qualities and charm to the town centre. And also the public spaces that you have, and we put a slide in later of plotting those. Rob touched on the opportunity perhaps to create a new public space as part of the master plan proposals that will connect into that network of existing streets and spaces that you have. Also here, features in relation to the sort of architectural merit, and by townscape we really mean the sort of roofscape and silhouette of your town, which of course is particularly important with the level changes that we have. The skyline is something that is particularly distinct to the town, and of course we need to craft our proposals to sit comfortably within that skyline. Frontages, and you can see a photo that we've included here to illustrate this point of the variety of different kinds of frontage that you have along your streets, from different widths, different roof lines, gables and eaves, different kinds of fenestration. And that variety is one of those key kind of qualities that we've noticed. By street section here, we mean the sort of proportion of the width to the height, and they vary considerably across the town, from very narrow and more sort of valley section through to much open and wider streets, and that sort of sequence being part of the character as well. And then here, materiality, and you can see just an insert of a picture of the different, the range of materials and feature detailing and that sort of rich texture and colours that you have across the town as well, rather than one key style. I think we've witnessed a strong and rich range of characters and qualities, which we'd also like to respond to. And then here, a range of other things in relation to sort of culture, arts and culture, through from the theatre to the cinema. You obviously got a thriving market and trading aspects to the town, lots of leisure opportunities. Of course, a lot of these sort of challenging at the moment, but there's no doubt there's a very strong base in the town from which to continue to grow. And then, of course, the sort of young people that you have coming through from Surrey University, and the opportunity then to provide things during the day and evening that serve all ages and all aspects of your community. So then to touch on the slide here that we had earlier that shows you the red line of the site that we are exploring. Of course, it is a superb opportunity right in the heart of the town, and really the opportunity to create a new quarter that sits alongside your town and your town centre, and draws some of these qualities and characters from the High Street that you can see running along here through North Street and northwards into the red line area. So there are two existing roads that run north-south through the site, Woodbridge Road and Commercial Road. And then the site is bordered on the northeast by Leopell Road, and to the west by the Friary Centre. And you can see there are areas of new frontage, opportunities for new frontage onto North Street in these three locations. Briefly to touch then on the historical context, there's of course a hugely rich history to the site, and we've sought to kind of capture some of those different chapters. And you can see some historical images here from when there was a theatre through to a post office, and at one point a brewery that was on the site, a key employer for the town, and a number of different sort of cultural and civic uses that used to occupy this piece of the town centre. And what we're really keen to do is ensure that this sort of next chapter in the history of this piece of town is cognizant and taking on some of this sort of rich history through, maybe it's through wayfinding, through some of the sort of storytelling at the ground floor realm, through public art, through play, and they're the kinds of things as well. We'd be really keen to hear from you about ideas you might have as to how we can bring some of this this wealth of history into the new proposals on North Street. In terms of the historical and more the sort of heritage context that we're operating in here, you can see the red line placed onto a three-dimensional view of the town centre, with the pale purple areas indicating the town centre conservation area, which of course runs along North Street and borders the red line of the site along in this location here, marked by the cursor. And in addition, a number of listed buildings, all shown in purple, particularly along the High Street, a number at the eastern end of North Street, and then a listed building number 17 North Street here that borders the site as well. And then the listed church of St Saviour to the north of the site here. And all of these will need to demonstrate how we're being sensitive in the setting of these buildings and also in the setting of this conservation area. And you can see here a photo of North Street. This is from 1902, quite different to how it looks now. And of course, the church, which is on the side of the Clydesdale Bank, in the middle of the shot. And I think what we thought in putting this image in particular is the opportunity really to perhaps reinstate some of the former glory back to North Street, which has been eroded over time through being able to replace some of the buildings along the edge here, and also make some significant enhancements to the public realm. And we'll come on to our proposals in relation to traffic movements as well along here, which release the ability to make this a more pedestrian-friendly environment. You can see here then the red line on the aerial photo. From this, it's clear much of the site is derelict, it's cleared land, and there's a lot of surface car parking as well on the site, which you can see in these areas. Dominion House sits within the site to the northern end in this location. And then a key part of the western edge is, of course, the existing bus station, which goes into the Friary Centre here. And as you may well be aware, the proposals to provide a new state-of-the-art bus station and transport interchange for buses in the future is very much part of our proposals. So in terms of some of the site challenges, we might perhaps call them, I think some of these are also great opportunities and assets. So one to highlight initially is the level changes shown with these blue arrows. So the highest point being in the eastern corner up here at the corner of North Street and Leopell Road, through to the lowest point at the northern end. And there's about a 6-metre level change across that. And what that brings with it is great opportunity to design in a way that makes use of the opportunity of that level change and continues to bring the sort of character and charm that you see on some of the sloping streets that we have in the town at the moment. The 2 existing roads that we're proposing to remove and to close are shown in green in these locations. We have an area of basement attached to the Friary Centre shown in blue, which is not an area we're able to build on. And we, of course, have the edge of the Friary Centre here shown in the orange colour. And then a number of other areas of existing car parks, the listed building here shown in yellow, and then the backs of some of these properties shown in red, where we've got the opportunity to sort of repair some of those relationships and hide those backs with new development and create new frontage that addresses some of those current relationships. So then a couple of slides just in relation to the new bus station. So you can see here the existing bus station shown on the aerial photograph on the left. And what we're proposing to do is create a new facility, a new sort of state-of-the-art bus station on Leopell Road in this area shown in the grey tone on the drawing on the right. We think this is it really is a fabulous opportunity to bring sort of sustainable movement into the heart of Guildford and create a fit-for-purpose facility that can really be future-proofed and stand the test of time as we move forward. There are, of course, a number of locations explored for this facility and also a number of different configurations within this site. And after a lot of work, this has been selected really as the best location, and also important to mention really the logistics of the bus routes and bringing buses in and turning circles and creating enough stands and stops for buses. You can imagine there's a lot of constraints and challenges in doing that. And we've been able to address those in this part of the site on the eastern edge. In doing that, there is also a temporary proposal whereby the existing bus station is relocated on a temporary basis over to the Portsmouth Road site whilst the new facility is constructed. And you can see here shown in purple the new facility which would be being built at the time that the bus station is temporarily located over here at Portsmouth Road, shown in the green parcel. So there's of course quite a key kind of phasing element and rerouting of buses to enable that temporary relocation to happen smoothly. There are also some changes to the road layout. I've already touched on the closure of Commercial Road and Woodbridge Road and the opportunities to improve North Street. You can see on the left here the current road layout with the direction of traffic shown in red, moving up and down North Street and into these adjacent streets, and the bus station shown in green here. And then on the right are our first proposals in relation to the sort of rerouting that is a result of the development coming forward, with the bus station relocated onto Leopold Road, key pedestrian routes then shown through the proposals in these orange dotted lines. And we want to make sure that those routes respond to desire lines and they connect into the context at the right places. And then a significant benefit we feel is going to be removing a large amount of traffic from North Street and creating this as a bus and taxi and access only route in an eastbound direction up the hill, shown with these green arrows. And this releases a significant amount of improvement to the public realm of North Street simply by a dramatic reduction of vehicle movements along here. So we think that could be a real benefit of some of the changes in the vehicular movement network. And I'll pass over to Ian here.
Thanks, Rebecca. As Rob said earlier, one of the key components of this redevelopment of this new quarter we're creating at North Street is the provision of new homes within the town centre. And obviously there'll be a huge range of homes, both in terms of size, ranging from smaller homes, smaller studio one-bed homes, up to kind of larger family homes too. And also the tenure, a mixture of affordable homes and also private for sale homes too. Also the quality of those homes, both externally and internally, is really important for us. So looking at the levels of sunlight, daylight, access to private and public community space, particularly in these times, is really quite key. And also making sure that each of those homes has good levels of, say, sunlight and daylight, but also comply with the development standards in terms of internal floor area too. So you can see here some key examples of externally and internally of homes that the group have delivered, ourselves have delivered in recent years. As has been mentioned before, we've also looked in a large and very detailed way at the town centre of Guildford, and one aspect of that has been the existing public open spaces within the heart of the town. And there are a number of these, but a lot of these are incidental and actually ad hoc spaces and historical spaces, which obviously sometimes are quite difficult to use because of the change in topography and levels that exist across the town centre. So as Rob said earlier, we think there's a great opportunity here to create a new civic space to this new quarter, a level platform that actually could be used for a series of events, both informal and formal, throughout the day and throughout the year. And this could be a real asset both to the development and to the wider people and public of Guildford. So this is something we think could form a key focal point, the key heart to this new development. And I think actually the ground floor, the success of the scheme is very much dependent upon the vibrancy of the ground floor. And as has been mentioned, the kind of challenges we're currently experiencing through COVID and lockdown has led to quite a few empty shops and empty units at ground floor throughout the high street of Guildford, the centre of Guildford, and indeed every high street across the UK. So actually we really want local people input into what type of uses we think are relevant here, and actually will be really complementary here to the existing uses you have in the town centre. We don't want to compete, we want to kind of add to the vibrancy of the town centre. And some of the ideas that were set out here could include retail and the different forms of retail. Is there anything missing that currently doesn't exist in the town centre? Could it be food and beverage led? Obviously, historically, there's a microbrewery on the site. Could there be a reference to that? Could there be leisure activities? Could there be community activities for the young, for the old, for everyone? And could actually we really add to the arts and culture offer that currently exists in Guildford too? So we really want people's input into what mix of uses people think is appropriate on the ground floor of the scheme. We've started to kind of pull together through our research and analysis of the site and the wider area a vision for North Street and this new quarter. And this really is focused around a new civic public square and a heart to the scheme. And what size of that, what shape is it, what location is that, and how we kind of define that and embrace it, and how do we make that really inviting and accessible for everyone to use. And part of that is actually having mixed uses around it, but also ensuring it's really connected and integrated into the wider fabric and built form around the site. So having a pedestrian-led environment and really strengthening the links north-south across North Street and through the site to the north, and also east-west into the Friary Centre itself and around the site and further east as well across Lee Pale Road. So connections into the wider public realm are really important to us, as is the integration of this new bus station too, and the creation of smaller, more incidental spaces, both for public and for private use. It's very much a pedestrian and cycle-led environment, open to all 24 hours a day, and very accessible and inviting for everyone. So we currently are undertaking a very detailed analysis of the city centre. That's been underway for quite a few months, and we're very aware of this document, supplementary planning document prepared by Guildford Borough about kind of key town centre views, and identifies a number of key views, both local and more strategic across the town centre. And we've been very much looking at this in more detail to analyse where we can see the development from, both locally and further away, and actually not wanting to hide the development, but making sure it's really sensitive to the key historical assets in and around the centre of the site and around the town centre of Guildford itself. We want to add sensitively to the town centre and not destroy the fantastic quality that it currently has. So we're very aware of this. And part of that is understanding the kind of immediate context, but also the slightly wider context in terms of the levels across the site, existing topography. As Rebecca mentioned earlier, it grades by about 2 stories, about 6 metres in 2 directions, from east to west and from east to north. And also it's about the location and proximity and height of the existing buildings, some of these being smaller and more sensitive, and some of these being much larger and newer additions in recent years too. So it's about where the real sensitive parts of the site and where are there opportunities for larger buildings and scale. So that's something which is ongoing, and we started to look at in more detail. So in terms of our early design proposals, we've established a series of design principles, if you like, a narrative of the scheme to move this forward. And there's a series of these key principles. As Rebecca touched on a moment ago, the first of these is the new location of the new bus station facility. And through a very detailed study over past months and years, the new preferred and proposed location is on Lee Pale Road at ground floor level there, allowing easy access both for pedestrian and for vehicles in and out of there from the south and from the north, and also from the east too. Secondly, it's about re-establishing the pedestrian connectivity across the site, both on an east-west basis to look at the kind of primary routes that are established throughout the town centre of Guildford, particularly along North Street, but also further north, connecting into the existing entrances into the Friary Centre as well, and also across Lee Pale Road, and also trying to establish and foresee new connections that may be happening in the future. And then also trying to strengthen and propose new connections north-south across North Street through the site itself, and further north towards Onslow Street and St Saviour Church, to creating a really integrated and connected public realm. Thirdly, about the introduction of new civic squares, and these will be a series of different squares, both formal and more informal, larger and smaller, and it's very noticeable about the urban grain of Guildford. Some of the most delightful spaces are the tightest and smallest spaces, and actually we want people to kind of embark on almost a series of a discovery as you walk through the site, to kind of embark on different routes and different experiences as you move through the scheme. And the fourth point then really relates to that, and it's about the transition of the urban grain in the town centre. If you look very clearly at a map of Guildford, very much the east-west routes between the High Street and the North Street are defined by a real tight-knit character and series of ginnels and laneways connecting those two routes north-south. And then as you progress further north, it's about a transition between that very tight-knit, smaller grain to larger footprint buildings. And how do we go about that transition in a very sensitive and coherent way? And that's something is a real challenge for us, but also a real opportunity, we think. So this next slide then shows our first, I suppose, concept idea of a master plan. This is a ground floor level master plan, which seeks to try and articulate some of the key assets at ground floor and the experiences that the person will undertake and experience as you walk through the site. So first focus then really is the pink colour, the new bus station we mentioned on Neepale Road. And this has been designed in a fair bit of detail to try and make sure that it's deliverable and it delivers the number of bus movements and stands we require, and that it's safe and that it works. And that actually it's in a location that we can connect to, and we can create a really attractive and visible front door that people can understand where it is, and it's very visible, and then we can connect to quite easily. Then it's about creating a series of new public squares through the scheme, and the main one, the heart of the scheme, being this new public square which is easily accessible and visible from North Street. And then it's about a series of routes, a sense of discovery as you move through the site. Excuse me. The orange colour then denotes ground floor mixed uses. And as I said earlier, the definition and the type of mixed use very much at ground floor level is up for grabs, and it's something we really want people's input into. But what we try to kind of portray here is actually a series of different uses, of different spaces and different types of use at ground floor, connected by a series of different pedestrian connections, both smaller and larger. And then a series also of residence gardens, more private areas, but creating amenity for the residents, and the flats of which will be located above the first floor level and above the mixed uses at ground floor level. You can see here we're also trying to connect to existing connections and routes into the Friary Centre to the west. So we've got a new Friary Square to the northwest corner, connecting to that existing entrance, and also to the southwest corner, a new key space there connecting at that existing entrance point into the Friary Centre. So we're really trying to create an embracing, integrated ground floor experience for everyone. Next slide, please. What we've then sought to start developing and exploring is the range of different architectural styles which could be appropriate here. Now, architecture is very subjective, and these different styles will mean different things to different people. But we've identified 3 different styles here we think that could be appropriate for the site, and we think there could be more. And again, we'd like to get people's input into this. So we've identified traditional, warehouse, and contemporary, 3 styles which exist in Guildford at the moment. And we tried then to include examples, precedent schemes of those various 3 different styles, both schemes that we've worked on ourselves as a design team, and also local buildings that you may recognise. So next slide, please. Zooming into those in a bit more detail. So then traditional then, very much embracing local materials, stucco, render, brick detailing, highly detailed, having more embellishment at ground floor and at roof level. It's about proportion, width, style of opening, and all details and expressions of materiality that you'll recognise, and particularly from buildings around Guildford too. Secondly then, what we've done is looked at this style, each of these 3 styles, and chosen 3 key viewpoints in and around the scheme. And we've actually applied a massing to the scheme, the same massing for each of these 3 different styles, so people can then compare apples for apples, like for like, between each of these 3 different styles for the same height massing of the schemes. So for traditional then, we've chosen 3 viewpoints. The first on the left-hand side from North Street, looking north across North Street into the scheme, into the heart of the scheme towards the new square. And you see the lower buildings on North Street itself, addressing North Street. The middle image then, taken from the north on Onslow Street, looking south towards the scheme, again showing a traditional aesthetic and showing taller buildings in this location. You can see St Saviour's Church on the left-hand side and the existing office building on the right-hand side. And then the third viewpoint in Friary Square, a working title for our new public space at the heart of the scheme, and again showing a range of different styles, of heights of buildings, including the entrance to the new bus station to the right-hand side there. Secondly, the warehouse style of architecture, adopting a very much a brick-led architecture with a warehouse aesthetic, whether that be slightly more traditional, a slightly more contemporary take, but very much stone detailing. And you see large, rhythmical, vertical proportion to the openings, the windows, the fenestration, etc. And you obviously recognise, hopefully, the Rodborough building close to the station at the heart of the Guildford Town Centre. So the next slide then, what we sought to do is the same 3 viewpoints, the same massing for each of those 3 viewpoints, and again applied a more of a warehouse type aesthetic to each of these 3 views. Again, left-hand side looking across North Street from the south looking north, Onslow Street in the centre image from the north looking south, and again the same heights of the taller buildings, St Saviour's Church on the left-hand side, and then finally on the right-hand side, Friary Square, the heart of the scheme, again the same heights of buildings, but applied a more warehouse aesthetic. And then finally, more of a contemporary style of architecture. And again, you can see examples of how that's been applied in different ways. So again, using fairly recognisable brick-led architecture, recognisable materials, but in a slightly more contemporary way, perhaps with a slightly more horizontal aesthetic, perhaps more stripped back in terms of the detailing, but still very much high quality. And then again, lastly, on the 3 styles of architecture, again, we've done the same thing, look at the same 3 key viewpoints. So on the left-hand side, again, from North Street, the viewpoint there, you see the lower scale buildings fronting onto North Street. You can just see the retained door bar 1 building on that image, and the cursor highlighting that now. Secondly, in the middle, Onslow Street, again, looking south from Onslow Street towards the scheme and taller buildings in this location. And then thirdly, again, on the right-hand side, Friary Square, the heart of the scheme, showing how contemporary buildings around that mixed-use space could feel. So we very much like your feedback on these styles, and actually, are there different or more styles that you think are appropriate? Could there be more than one style, or do you think one style is appropriate, or indeed a mix of styles? Which style do you think is most or not appropriate at all? And are there key precedent images from around Guildford Town Centre, or indeed in London or surrounding Guildford or Surrey, you think we should look at and take cues from? We'd very much like to hear from you on the architectural style as a whole. So Rob, passing back to you on the public consultation programme. Thanks.
Thanks very much to Ian and Rebecca. I know that was a lot of information for you all to take in over a fairly short period of time. As you can see on this slide, we have a dedicated website set up, www.northstreetregeneration.co.uk. After this presentation and subsequent Q&A session is over, we will endeavour to upload the video as soon as we can to the website for people to watch who aren't able to attend this event with us this evening. Soon, we're hoping in the very near future, we will upload all of this information that we've gone through with you onto the website in a very, very clear and easy to read format, and it should be user friendly for you all to click, have a look at these plans in more detail, and provide your comments and feedback where appropriate. So as I said at the start of this presentation, this is the first stage of many. we very much want to target submitting a planning application in the middle part of next year. And as this is stage one with the very early initial concept ideas that we welcome your feedback on, and as we go through the process with Guildford Borough Council as planning authority, we will update you all, present to you the updated designs as they emerge, and feedback the comments we receive and how we've taken these into account with the designs moving forward. After we submit a planning application next summer, we will host a post-submission exhibition and continually update you as we go through this process. I very much welcome you all to pass on this website to your colleagues, your friends, your family, sign up to the newsletter, pass on that information for other people to sign up, because the more information we get, the more the community can have their say in these emerging designs. So I'm sure many of you are wondering what this means in terms of a timescale, both from us submitting an application to obtaining a full consent to commencing construction. This timetable here is high level, but I know if I was a resident, we would want to know when the spade is in the ground and when the development will be complete. So we're very much hoping to commence construction in autumn 2022, given the scale of this site and the significant enabling infrastructure required to bring it forward. There will be some time between full permission and commence construction on site. We're hoping that the new bus station and the first new homes will be delivered within 3 years of construction starting. And then the total construction period of the development we approximate will be 8 years, which means should we start in autumn 2022, we would hope that the development would be completely finished and construction would be over by 2030. Now, this is very high level at this stage, and we will continue to explore ways of improving our program where possible. But we thought if we were the community, we would want to know this as soon as possible. Now, I hope you all found that informative. I'd like to pass back to Lisa now to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody, and thank you all for all the questions that are coming in via the Q&A. I will get through, as I say, as many as I possibly can in the next half an hour. Any we don't get to, we will come back to you in follow-up after today's session. So before I address some of the questions coming in now, a few people did actually submit questions ahead of the session. And one of these I've actually seen pop up in the Q&A box here too. So I'll start with this. Somebody has asked, about the mix of homes that are going to be available, and someone has mentioned specifically the fact that there is a shortage of larger, high-quality 3-bedroom apartments in Guildford, which are attractive to downsizers potentially. Are there any plans to include that sort of home in the development?
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to field some of the questions out to the various members of the team. I think that one's a relatively simple answer to give. There's going to be a mix of homes from smaller apartments, aimed at obviously first-time buyers, through to larger apartments. So it certainly would potentially be attractive to downsizers. So yeah, we'll be working through with a mix of homes, obviously cognizant of Guildford's sort of policies on housing mix as well. But yes, there will be certainly some large properties in the development.
Thank you. And what about sort of planned floor space, square footage for commercial use and the mixed uses that you touched on? Is there detail there yet?
So that's something that's very much in the early design phase at this stage. So we are very much focused on delivering some very flexible commercial uses. We all know, and everyone probably has seen what has happened to the high street and to the retail market over a number of years, been exacerbated by the terrible pandemic this year. So what we're trying to really do is work through what could be some more probably innovative commercial uses on the site. So not just your shops, but places that people will come and visit and spend time at. So that might be things aimed at younger families, soft play centres, for example, cafes associated with those. We very much like the idea of creating some sort of visitor attraction on the site. There potentially some office spaces and some community space in there, some art galleries, a real mix of uses to create, reasons for people to come and stay and spend time in Guildford Town Centre.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Okay, jumping around a little bit, finish off here, and then I'll group the questions as much as I can when we go forward. Somebody's also asked this question to us previously regarding the ground floor level and how you plan to build that. Will you follow the lie of the land, or will you be looking to excavate down?
I'll probably pass that question across to Ian and Rebecca, if that's okay.
Yeah, we'd like to utilise the changing topography of the site for a number of ways, really. I think firstly, it's to really provide flush access across North Street so everyone can gain easy access into the scheme, both young and old, and those slightly less immobile, perhaps. So that's really important to us. So actually, it's an accessible neighbourhood for everyone. I think we do need to provide parking and cycle parking and ancillary areas, refuse, for example, and other plant areas. And that's an opportunity to hide those areas underground, under those levels. So using almost like a cut and fill. So those kind of uses, which slightly have a more inactive frontage, can be accommodated below that public level. But I think we'd like to utilise, as we said earlier, the change level across the site to add more character and work with the levels as much as we possibly can.
Thanks, Ian. So a few questions then about specific buildings, perhaps, which border the site or are within the site. So somebody has asked about the telephone exchange bordering the development. Are there any plans? Does that fit into the work that you guys are doing?
Rob, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so throughout this process, and JTP will probably be able to jump in as well. We want to ensure that the overall master plan is designed in a manner that has the future in mind. Part of the reason why we had selected Leopold Road as an appropriate location for the bus station was to promote the permeability of our site to the Friary Centre, for example. I know that's not necessarily directly in relation to the telephone exchange next door, but we are very much aware of the wider aspirations of the future. And I think it would be amiss for us to design this in a way which didn't have that thought process at the forefront of it. I don't know if you've got anything more you'd like to add to that, Ian.
I think that's right, Rob. I think we have a red line for the site, but it's about integrating the scheme within the surroundings and also anticipating what new connections, what new sites could come forward in the future, and really master planning in a responsible way, which considers the surrounding sites and connections too.
Thank you. And another building somebody's mentioned specifically is the old post office. Are there any plans there?
So the old post office site does form part of the development of this site.
Okay. Thank you. And sort of a question that links in a way is unsightly buildings that surround the site. Somebody has asked, are there plans to sort of screen against buildings that surround the site? Obviously, there isn't much you can do about them themselves, but anything you can do to sort of screen against those buildings?
I'll pick up that one, Lisa. I think we touched on the fact that there are properties sort of backing onto the boundary off of North Street. So I think there's certainly an opportunity there to sort of repair that relationship and hide some of those sort of backs of properties. I think also the western boundary with the side of the Friary Centre, we need some really careful sort of design solutions there to make sure that there's the right relationship with those boundary walls, which are currently sort of blank, and that we make sure we design out any opportunities for potential crime or people feeling unsafe, and make sure that public realm is all well overlooked and well lit and attractive and welcomes people in. So I think they're the boundaries we need to be particularly mindful of.
Okay, lots of questions about the bus station as well. So somebody has asked, why does the bus station need to be moved temporarily, and why can't it stay where it is currently until it moves to its permanent position?
So the bus station has to move off-site during the construction phase from a logistical point of view, and also from a health safety point of view. Obviously, having a significant number of people operating on a bus, operating around a bus station is not, not particularly viable. So we've been working very closely with Guildford and Surrey County Council and also the bus operators, looking at various options. And we have come up therefore with a temporary solution, which moves the buses to Portsmouth Road and also some temporary stops along North Street and elsewhere around the town. And that's something that's still continuing to evolve, working with those sort of key stakeholders.
Okay, lots of comments as well as much as questions. We've had a few people suggesting soft play, spacious cafes that you can fit a buggy into. So lots of great places for people with children and young children as well. I assume, all of these ideas are helpful, and you encourage everybody to get in touch with that sort of comment.
Yeah, Jack, do you want to pick up on some of the sort of stuff we've done in the past and some of our developments around that? You're on mute, Jack.
Sorry, I think it's something that we've developed. We've got a good track record in terms of what we've delivered on some of our sites, and some of the commercial spaces are really diverse in what we've delivered, from sort of retail to restaurants to soft play to office space, affordable business space. We've got a sort of a good track record in delivering quite a diverse range of uses. So it's definitely something that, it's good to see all the comments coming in on the Q&A as to what Guildford needs. So it's certainly something that we would look to design into the development. We're obviously at a very early stage at the moment, but it's really about understanding what the needs of Guildford are, and getting these comments at such an early stage in the process means that we can help weave them into the proposals.
I think it's also fair to say there's been a few comments there about sort of open air, sort of cultural use spaces, theatre type spaces. And I think one of the things that we have successfully done on our previous developments is to use the sort of public squares to create spaces that events can happen outdoors. I think some of the events that happen, particularly in the summertime, when the weather's a bit better, can be an absolutely fantastic way of people coming together, a mix of people, outdoor cinemas, theatres, productions, whatever they might be. And if we can use that space in the centre of the site to really encourage that, I think that'll be a great asset to Guildford.
Probably just add one last thing to that. Sorry if I cut you off there, Jack. I was just going to just to say we're acutely aware of what's going on both locally in Guildford and nationally with the retail market, and that there's an opportunity for us here to ensure that whatever sort of alternate use is provided at ground floor, that it complements and enhances what's there in Guildford already and doesn't compete with it. So that's very much a part of our consideration as well.
I just add that also flexibility is the key. A lot of the public open spaces and commercial areas that we deliver, they're able to operate and offer a different type of thing throughout the year. So whether it's showing live sports event on a kind of a big screen, or outdoor cinema, or Christmas markets, or open air Pilates and things like that, they're very flexible spaces that can be used throughout different seasons, but also used for over time for different things. And I think what we've seen with the retail and the high street more recently is that flexibility is key. We don't want to deliver something here which is going to be redundant in a few years' time. We've got to be thinking about how we reuse these spaces if that needs to be thought about.
Thank you. Somebody's asked about the retail offering and the potential there, and has asked if there's any say, if we have any say, if people have any say over the types of shops that are potentially brought in. Someone has suggested here they'd like to see more one-off shops instead of chains. Is that something that you're interested in hearing about and getting ideas for?
I think so. I wouldn't want to rule out either, to be honest, at this stage, because the last thing you want is having empty commercial units. I think that's probably the worst outcome for Guildford. I mean, our experience is that we do try and work closely with independent shopkeepers and businesses. We have a number of them in our developments, and we come up with ways of supporting them in from an early stage with kind of rent-free periods and fit-out contributions. I think it's about getting the right type of users in there, and that could be chains, it could be independent shops and retailers. It's really not something that we would sort of seek to restrict, I suppose, at this stage.
Okay, and you touched on stories and building heights during the presentation. Somebody has asked, do you believe all the styles that you're looking at here, they can all sort of each of those styles can take different heights of buildings and a variety of heights?
Ian and Rebecca, do you want to answer that one?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I think they can. I think we all accept that the scheme really requires a range of different building heights across the scheme. I think the three architectural styles we've identified can all accommodate different heights across the scheme, and there could well be, as we said, there could well be more different styles too. We think could be appropriate, and we'd like people's thoughts on that. But I think we all agree that it's very appropriate to have a changing and articulated roofscape to try and reflect the quality of the roofscape you see currently across Guildford Town Centre. So yes.
Yeah, I think one of the characteristics that we identified in looking at the town was this range of styles and material palettes and silhouette and skylines. So I think we're certainly really keen that those elements of the character are carried through to the proposals.
And just picking up on one or two of the questions online, I think we're certainly looking at the idea of having, as Rebecca said, a number of different types of roofscape to reflect Guildford. And some of those different types could be green or brown roofs, for example, whether they be for biodiversity reasons or for amenity reasons.
Thank you. Somebody has asked, I know we've touched on this as well, but perhaps we can elaborate a little bit. Are there any plans for any public green space?
No plans at the moment, but as we've just said, I think certainly some some amenity space at upper floor levels will be provided through the terracing, but we haven't got to that level of detail yet as to whether that be private or public, but it's certainly something to consider moving forward.
I think also that there would certainly be new trees and new planting with design within the public realm, and of course there's commitment as well to meet biodiversity net gain through the proposals too. So that would be need to be factored into the landscape design and the landscape characteristics.
We certainly think that actually access to public and private open space is really important, especially so at the moment. And I think for people's physical as well as mental health well-being, it's really key.
Okay. Questions about parking? Got a few of these, and again, I know you touched on this during the presentation. What are the plans for residents parking on the site?
Rob, do you want to answer this question?
Yeah, so although numbers are still to be decided through the formal planning process, we believe that the site has the potential to accommodate a level of parking. That's not to say we believe it's going to be one parking space for every single residential home that is developed here. We want to encourage a sustainable mode of transport for this development, and given its proximity to important transport corridors, the train station and the new bus station, we very much want to promote people using it to its best ability. So long story short, there will be some parking, but it will probably not be anywhere near one parking space per residential home.
Okay. And what about cycling provision?
So as part of a sustainable transport package, we will be ensuring our residents will have an appropriate place to store their bikes, which is safe and secure, again, as a way to encourage sustainable transport. And then for the people who use the new public realm, we will look to accommodate cycle parking at ground level. We wouldn't want to encourage people to cycle through the scheme per se, because that's not an appropriate way of moving around it, I would say. But we would seek to accommodate people cycling into the town to have somewhere to park up through the emerging public realm designs as well.
Right. Lots of interest in sustainability as well, and climate change. Somebody's asked for a bit more detail on low carbon, positive considerations regarding biodiversity. Does anyone want to talk about that a bit more?
Yes, obviously it's addressing climate change is something that's obviously a very important topic at the moment. And we as a business, Berkeley Group, have taken climate change and sustainability very seriously for a number of years. And in January, we're actually going to be releasing our new science-based targets for up to 2030. So I'm not going to say anything too specific at the moment about exactly what this scheme will be doing, but it's certainly to say that we're going to be focused very much on looking forward now with our new kind of corporate science-based targets, working with the science-based targets, which is a corporate climate action change group. And I think the Berkeley Group has already committed to having net carbon transition plans on all of our developments to date. And again, this will be one that we will be implementing here. We're always looking at new technologies, new ways of doing things. So if people on this call have particular expertise in it or particular ideas, please do share those with us. It's always obviously an ever-changing industry at the moment. I think on the biodiversity, again, Berkeley's been very much at the forefront of biodiversity. All of our sites have to show a net biodiversity gain. That's a commitment that we made some years ago now, and we have a very good relationship with the London Wildlife Trust, who also operate with the home counties wildlife trusts. And we really do take it seriously in our developments, putting back more green and nature into our developments that obviously started as they are at the moment.
Okay, and back to this was touched on again. What's the proportion or the provision of affordable homes?
So that's not something that we've defined at the moment. There will be affordable housing provided on site. There is quite a lot more work to do yet. Obviously, we're at a very early stage of the design process, so we haven't defined how many homes are exactly going to be on site, what the other uses are, the exact and final location of the bus station, and obviously the associated infrastructure costs with the development. So that will all come out in the coming months as we develop the scheme in more detail. But as I say, there will be affordable housing provided on site.
Okay, quite a different one. Are there any plans for a hotel at the development? Someone's mentioned there's a lack of hotel accommodation in Guildford.
It's not something that we have considered, if I'm being honest at this stage.
Okay, and a couple of people as well mentioning roof gardens. I don't know if there's any comments on that, but again, another comment to add to the mix. Roof gardens, but also rooftop terraces, rooftop bars. Someone's mentioned a swimming pool. So all ideas again that we can add to the pot. Are you looking to put any cover on any of the open spaces? We've talked about open spaces and what that space can be used for. Is there any way of covering those spaces for when we need to?
Ian or Rebecca, would you like to answer that one?
We haven't considered that as yet, but just trying to think on my feet a little. St Christopher's Place, which is a delightful little space just north of Oxford Street, a little lane which is obviously lined by food and drink outlets and little restaurants, has a number of different events throughout the year, and some of those events they put a tarpaulin across the street, and it's very well lit and very well attended and loved as a space. So that's something we could think about and look at, but it's not a level of detail we thought about at the moment, but certainly something to bear in mind as we develop the design in the future.
Okay, and someone has also asked about working from home space among the apartments and perhaps as part of the amenities for residents. Are you thinking about that sort of thing, especially this year, I guess, sort of post-pandemic?
Yeah, Jack, do you want to pick up on that one?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I think it's something that more and more people are thinking about. It's something that we didn't know that this was going to happen, and it has turned the world on its head. But I think it's made everyone think about it. It's definitely important to have enough storage for all your things, enough space for a bike, and enough space for a home office, because we're using our homes for so much more. You know, if the pandemic's taught us anything, it's that, you know, we need flexibility in our homes. So it is something that Berkeley are considering. I'm working on another one of our developments in Staines, and we've just designed in some home working space to all the apartments, but also a sort of co-working shared space at the ground floor, which I think is something that more and more people are looking for these days. So yes, it is something that we're looking at. We will look at it further in the design.
Okay, and back to the points on pedestrianisation. Did you say that the routes are going to be open 24/7?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to ourselves as a design team. It's a really inclusive place we're creating here, for not only for the residents of the new quarter, but also the wider public of Guildford, to everyone. I think it's really important that it is really inclusive. So the key routes and key spaces through the scheme will be open.
Okay, John Rigg mentioned at the beginning, obviously this site has been up for discussion a few times before, and a couple of people are asking whether previous proposals, previous design ideas are being looked at and incorporated as part of this process as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, there's been obviously quite a few variations of principally retail-based schemes being promoted previously for North Street. This is very much a mixed-use scheme with a heavy reliance on residential homes, bringing homes into the town centre, but obviously with flexible commercial uses at ground floor. I think that the previous retail schemes we've seen have had some good aspects to them in terms of the routes and wayfinding through the master plans, but they have been quite a different feel on the ground floor, where they've been very, very heavily focused by big retail boxes, which this is certainly not going to be. It's going to be smaller, more suitable commercial units for Guildford in our view.
Okay. Again, a couple of questions on this topic. How do you see the development fitting into the wider context of Guildford? People are asking how it's going to relate to the Friary Centre, again, and other buildings that surround. How are you taking that into consideration with your planning?
I think in a number of different ways, really. I think initially, at the outset of a design, we think about the kind of key design lines, the routes and the spaces, and how do we connect kind of existing connections and design connections through the scheme. Then also it's about the uses, how we pull people through the site and encourage people, attract people through the site by such kind of attractors such as the bus station and other key mixed uses as well. Then it's about the architecture and the building blocks and kind of focal points, and again about pulling people through, vista stoppers, etc. So there's a whole host of different ways of doing that. But the key thing to start with is the framework for the ground floor plan, and that's about the routes and the spaces, and then the buildings and the architecture follow on after that. If we get the routes and the spaces right, then the rest of the scheme generally follows pretty successfully after that.
I think also in relation to heights, there'll be a lot of work to come forward in terms of how we make sure there's sensitive relationships with existing buildings, and that height relationships are appropriate and sensitive, particularly as we move, come up to North Street. We think there's the opportunity for height further towards the north, but making sure that the silhouette is carefully articulated and sculpted around those more sensitive edges.
Yeah, I would also say that throughout our engagement with Guildford Borough Council as local planning authority, although we are at the very infancy of the formal design discussions with them, hence why we're giving this presentation this evening. But the wider town planning context is certainly a discussion point we've had with those representatives, and as we go through this process, we'll continue to engage and discuss how our master plan can fit in line with the aspirations of the wider town centre, where appropriate, where we can.
Mm-hmm.
I think also, sorry, Lisa, just in terms of some of the uses and just looking at some great comments and questions coming in, I think we're not trying to be a sort of shopping centre. We're also not trying to be another sort of high street development. We know we're not on the high street, and I think this will be as Rob touched on at the beginning, this needs to be different and exciting. And there's some really exciting comments coming in there about what people want to see. And it's important that we pick up on those if we want this place to be different. But I think, as Tom mentioned, and touching on the point about chains coming in and things, we're not looking to make sort of large shops and retail units, and we're not located on the high street. It is a sort of an off-pitch location where we have an opportunity to do something a bit different. So there's also a lot of comments about startup businesses and affordability and things. I think when you make the commercial spaces smaller and more flexible, Berkeley often work very closely with some startup businesses, and I think quite a heavy percentage of our developments, if you go there, they are independent coffee shops and bakeries and grocery stores and things. I mean, if we do a development on the high street, then no doubt you're going to get interest from high street operators. But I think at North Street, if we get the design right, I think we've got an opportunity to work with some independent people. And I think maybe the reason you'll visit there is because of the leisure focus and because it does offer something a bit more independent and a bit different than what you'd get at the high street. We're not trying to compete with the high street. They're having a tough enough time as it is. So we don't want to recreate sort of big box retail that may be vacant. We want to create something that's different and has flexibility.
Yeah, that vibrancy is a huge opportunity for North Street, where you've got the potential for the bus station to be located on site with a prominent entrance off of a main square. That automatically can create a huge amount of footfall through the scheme of people coming and going from Guildford town centre. As Jack says, if we deliver something which doesn't compete but complements the offering of the high street, there can be a real vibrancy about the place, which is quite exciting, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Rob. We've talked a lot about outside space and usable outside space. Somebody's asked if there are any plans for indoor community space. Perhaps that's a good use for some of that commercial space on the ground floor.
Yeah, I think that's something that we certainly think could be incorporated into the development. We'd like to get some ideas from people about what that space could be. What their ideas are, who might even be the users of those spaces, because again, it's important that these spaces have uses, and they're just not just sat there empty. So if people in particular groups or interested parties want to come and talk to us, please do so.
Great. Somebody's talking about Guildford and the views in Guildford, and obviously, very, very important to the community. What work is being done to sort of protect or consider and have a look at the views from inside the town outwards towards the countryside? What work's being done there?
Pick that one up, Lisa. I think a few people have also touched on View City, the View City model that we're able to sort of plug into, and I think that's going to be a really helpful design tool for us as we start to look at the sort of massing and volumes of the proposals. So View City is definitely one way, and you can look, of course, in different street scenes as well. And there will, of course, be Ian referred to the document produced by Guildford Borough Council in relation to protected views around the town as well. And as part of the future planning application, we would be placing our proposals within a range of those key views and demonstrating that there isn't significant harm to the existing skyline and that certain heritage assets are sort of the sensitive relationships with those. So a number of different strands would come forward to test and explore the proposals through those views.
Okay, question about architecture here. Somebody said they quite like the idea of traditional style. They think Guildford would be sympathetic to it, but how would you go about delivering that sort of style without it looking a little bit too pastiche?
Very carefully. I think it's all about the quality of the materials you use, the quality of the detailing, and also the proportions, making sure that actually it's true to that particular style. I think architecture is really subjective. I think, as we said, it's going to be an interesting debate. We had some views earlier on about actually it should be a very futuristic scheme. Some people think it should be a very traditional scheme, and so it's going to be interesting to see where it ends up and the range of different styles or not that the scheme may contain. So we're looking forward to having that debate, and we can show more examples and more options of that moving forward.
I think it's worth adding on the architecture that, as Ian says, it's very subjective and people have very different views. and it's a fine balance to strike. But just to reassure people that the sort of quality that Berkeley invests in our developments is definitely of the sort of the higher range than you'll see. It's definitely not just about generic house building and things. And each of our developments has a real identity, and we do invest in the quality and the public art and the landscape and things. And we don't just have a select panel of architects that we use and roll them out and copy and paste each development, no matter where we develop. We always select an architect that's appropriate to that location. Each design is bespoke to that location, so it's very much, as hopefully JTP showed with all the analysis that built up to the early design proposals, it's very much from the ground up, and this will be a bespoke design for Guildford. This isn't just a sort of an off the peg design. So we do use very good architects, and we will make sure that whatever this ends up looking like, it will be high quality and it will have a real identity for the town.
Excellent. Thank you, Jack. It is 7:30 and we've got lots and lots of questions here. So I think we're going to call it a day for now. But as I say, we will get back to everybody. Please do have a look at www.northstreetregeneration.co.uk if you haven't done so already, and sign up to our mailing list, because we'll be able to then keep in touch with you, keep you in touch with updates and things like that. You can also find our contact details on there if you'd like to share your questions personally. And again, we can get back to you. Thank you so much for taking part and listening. As I say, there'll be more information coming on the website in the coming weeks, and we'll be building on the information and the content there. Thank you so much for your questions. Tom, I don't know if you've got anything to add to wind up.
No, just to say thanks very much, everyone. It's been fantastic to see such a great turnout. I think it says probably a lot about how much people care about this development coming forward and how much they care about Guildford. So, we're really excited to be working with the council and, with John's support. We're going to be, showing you more and more as we progress through this scheme. And, please do keep passing feedback to us. And, this is going to be an iterative process at the start. So let's carry on talking. John, was there anything else you wanted to add before we leave?
Only just to say, I think it has been such a torrid year with COVID for us all, and the news and business and the high street and all the other depressing news. This is a really exciting bit of good news, and to have a major developer with the resources to take this time to plan a long-term improvement for our town centre, and to involve all the community in the way that you said you will and are already showing you will, it's a really bit of good news amongst everything else. So I've been reading the questions with great interest. I think there's some fantastic ideas there, and I'll be hounding you, Tom, for them, because there's such good ideas. So thank you everybody for your contributions, and thank you Berkeley Homes for the presentation.
Brilliant. Thanks everybody very much, and we'll hopefully see you at another session soon. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.